love indie games. It's not the first time you've heard somebody say that, and surely it will not be the last. As much as I like playing JRPGs that can easily wipe hundreds of hours away from my life, I also like playing many other short experiences that aren't afraid to break from the norm. Games that are passion projects created by smaller studios, a small group of people, to even just one person. It's fun to see the different things that they can come up with. So, in order to not only take a good break from the games that eat away at my time, I want to tell you about 3 indie games that I've played and hopefully garner your interest for them. These are the 3 indie games I believe you should try. And of course, if you have any indie game recommendations, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. And while you're down there, feel free to drop a subscription while you're at it. Vehicular, Super Mario 64. Vehicular, Super Mario 64. Vehicular, Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom. Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom is a game that is crazy fun. From the graphics that reek of the N64 era, alongside its simplistic gameplay, it's hard to not keep your eyes away from it. I haphazardly came across this game by watching one of the bald men of Twitch, Tectone, lightly play it, and within the first minute of his gameplay, I was convinced that I had to grab this game for myself. And boy oh boy, this game will have you driving like a crazy taxi. In Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom, you play as a spring-powered taxi created by this guy named Morio. In this world, there's an evil company named Tosla, and they're poisoning the oil supply through these toxic green gears. Our job is to collect these gears so that we can stop the CEO, Alien Musk, from corrupting not only the vehicles, but the livelihoods of the people worldwide. Or at least something along those lines. I was too busy playing the game rather than focusing on the full narrative. The main gameplay of Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom is pretty straightforward, as it's a collectathon. You go around different places, traversing the maps in absurd ways, collecting gears to advance and repeat. And I have to say that I've needed a game like this for the longest time. This is one of the games that avidly reminded me of the days when I was going through games like Super Mario 64 or SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. These games were always relaxing to me in a way where it was only me, the game, and my curiosity. Going around exploring and finding out where all the stars or spatulas were one of the most peak gameplays I've had in gaming. It wasn't really all about finishing the game as quickly as possible, but just enjoying wandering at your own pace. But this game isn't as relaxing as I make it out to be, and you can see it aesthetically. This game wants you to move chaotically. You will need to be going up, and you can probably see the problem with this. In comparison to Super Mario 64, where you have many different ways to approach movement, you are a vehicle. Your choices in movement are to accelerate, decelerate, and to flip a wheel. The flip a wheel is essentially the main gimmick that will get you across the extraneous terrain that these different locations have. Sometimes you'll be using it bouncing on rubber duckies, launching off ramps, breaking open areas, bowling, dodging the gigantic subconscious Morio shooting laser beams at you with his eyes, and many other use cases I cannot possibly mention. This game is kind of gross sometimes. There are also some other mechanics that adds a layer of movement that makes me genuinely curious to see it done in execution, which also makes me want to see the speedrunning community behind this game, because I would just love to see how they sequence break, or just in general, go fast. I'm also a big fan of the music. It's very fitting towards the game and it elevates the entire experience. It's very upbeat, bright, and fun, but it doesn't stop them to get into the moodier melodic tunes where it's appropriate. Overall, you can tell that this game is oozing with nostalgia and creativity. It's really fun to just sit down to do nothing other than driving around crazily in hazardous environments collecting gears. And they even have sections where it breaks out of that simplistic mode, such as the one that resembles Crazy Taxi, where you have to drive people to their wanted locations, or the one where you have to sneak around stealthily inside of Tosla's headquarters. There's not really much of a time where you aren't going to see something that won't catch your attention. Like the fact that the oil company Tosla is not a real company, and that Alien Musk is a completely fictional character. Alongside Van Biodiesel, who does not remind you of a meme where a guy turns into a convertible, and is not a direct reference to the real guy Vin Diesel, who cares about family. As this is a work of fiction that contains crude humor, and any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, actual events, or actual companies is purely coincidental. But I have my doubts, and if that alone doesn't sell you on the game, I don't know what to tell you. Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom is a bona fide must-play for those who want a fun, nostalgic, chaotic, but relaxing collect-a-thon where you drive a spring-powered taxi in the weirdest scenario story. There's a lot in it for the casual gamer, and there's even further opportunities for those who want to game even further. And personally, I'm for sure going to be keeping my eyes peeled for it all regardless. Anyways, I got places to be. I'll catch you later, guys. Okay, I'm gonna keep it a buck. Restless Soul is a game that's probably not for most audiences. And I don't mean that it's because it's insane or mature or anything. I just mean that it thrives off purely just humor. Fourth wall break humor. Restless Soul is a 3D pixel themed bullet hell RPG that will have you cracking a wry smile or groaning in cringe. And I would be the person who felt both throughout the entire adventure. This game to me is not what I would consider to be the best, as I surely wasn't its targeted audience. I generally thought the game looked interesting and already had it in my abyss-like library waiting to see the light of day. And now that I played it for myself, it probably would have done me better leaving it back in the darkness. In Restless Soul, you play as a ghost looking to leave the afterlife to complete some unfinished business. But upon reaching the Reaper and letting him know, you find out that the Overlord Dr. Kroll doesn't want that to happen. So, in order to achieve your goal, you must gather all 8 keys, overthrow Dr. Kroll's cruel dictatorship, and finally unlock the portal to the living. It's nothing too complex, and it's generally just a light RPG with many humorous aspects along the way.
But CyKer, you described yourself as not the targeted audience for the game, so why are you recommending it?
I'm recommending this game because although it wasn't my cup of tea, I still found enjoyment in it. While the jokes didn't always land or give me more than a slight chuckle, it was nice to play something so self-aware. It's kind of embarrassing. You will have characters stating the obvious, breaking the logic of what they should know, and much more other cases of irony. There's literally a part in this game where you come into contact with the developer as a self-insert like 3 different times. This is the type of game where if you do not connect with it within the very beginning, you will already know whether or not this is your game or not. And despite all the half chuckles I had for the jokes, I still found myself playing through it all with a reasonable amount of engagement. What honestly kept my interest at most was the bullet hell gameplay the game offered. It was visually appealing to me and one of the main reasons I wanted to give this game a shot. And while they were more sparse compared to the game's dialogue, I still found a small amount of enjoyment in it. But I do think there were some glaring issues within the system. The majority of battles are kind of cakewalks and there isn't much diversity in attack patterns. In comparison to other bullet hell games, it's kind of like a bullet grave. You got the guys that shoot directly at you, the guys that shoot back when you shoot them, twin shots, machine gun trails, shotgun burst, and probably a few more that I'm forgetting. For the bosses, this does usually have some variations, but it usually doesn't take more than a few tries before you're able to pack it all down and continue. Another criticism that I hold for this game was that it was hard at some points to gauge the depth of the bullets being shot. With the way the camera is positioned in some of the battles, it was difficult telling if I was in a safe spot or not. That could be an issue with mixing 2D sprites within a 3D bullet hell space, but generally it was just a prominent thought that I had in some fights. But I really did enjoy some of the other parts where they did switch up the gameplay, like the suitcase puzzles, the Tapper-inspired one where you're throwing fashion wear at people, and the one where it was like playing the world's hardest game. But I do hold a tiny bit of resentment for both the stealth section and the ghost run one. Speaking about the soundtrack, it's nothing mind-blowing or something that will have you straight jamming, but is minimalistic at best, and I think that's something this game does great at. Restless Soul really isn't supposed to be something you take seriously or that will blow your mind as an indie game, but it is a game that will just allow you to relax and play something purely just to make you laugh. And by the time you hit the ending, I feel like the humorous adventure truly pays off when you finally learn what the journey was all for. So if the fourth wall humor, the minimalistic design, or the fact you have spare hours to just enjoy something fun, why not give Restless Soul a shot? After all, you only live twice. Chants of Sennarr is a cool game. No, like a really cool game. I have never played a game like Chants of Sennarr, and I am so glad that I did. Chants of Sennarr is a point-and-click adventure puzzle where your goal is to reunite the people through the power of language. And if that already doesn't pique your interest, then this game is not for you. But still, I have reasons to recommend it regardless. Learning a false language probably isn't on most people's agenda, but that factor alone is what got me on board in the first place. Here's the reason why. In comparison to the actual classes that I took to learn Japanese, this game made the language learning experience engaging and believable. Jumping into a language where I read only symbols instead of the English alphabet was an interesting challenge. But as time went by, I found myself not as interested because I can only learn behind the screen of a computer. I wanted to actually go practice conversations, talk to real natives so that I can reinforce my knowledge of what I learned through action instead of an echo chamber. That's the idea of what I think makes language learning engaging. So, in comes Chants of Sennarr, a video game where you have to translate multiple false languages. I'm just in some weird looking environment just traveling through. No name, no face, and just pure curiosity. I come across the closed door in front of me, and to his side, a lever and a sign in a language I do not understand. I flip the lever, the door opens. I flip the lever again, the door closes. Okay, one of those top glyphs must mean close and the other must mean open. I go through the door and I'm faced with a water flow issue and I cannot pass through it. There's another bunch of levers and a note to the side showing a pattern using the same glyphs I saw previously. I match the levers referring back to what I believe meant open and close, and then the water goes away. By this time, I've already established an idea of something like opening and closing or an on and off switch. So when the traveler pulls out his journal and we match the symbols to the image, we now know for sure that the first three glyphs we came across meant close, open, and door. This is what sets the basis of true language learning. The action of experimentation, reinforcing guesses through context, and a magical notebook that confirms that something 100% meant what you thought it was or wasn't. This game is freaking cool. It's a game that will have you learning by doing and slowly breaking down the languages using guesswork and context clues. A game that makes language learning more infinitely fun than just text on a PowerPoint presentation. I never would have thought a game like this would have me so engaged the entire way through. This game was so fun to me that I spent 6-hour-long sessions, and compared to the 2 to 3 hours I could only give the other games. But as much as I give this game such positive praise, there's definitely some caveats that need to be mentioned undertaking a task like learning a false language. For an example, you need to be okay with failing to understand. Learning through interactions, context clues, and conversation is realistic, but you need to be okay with learning to get things wrong. There were many times over the adventure where I've caught myself not understanding the glyphs that I was seeing, and I had to constantly go back and reaffirm the things that I've already learned. And here's the thing, the game wants you to do that. When you don't exactly understand everything that's being handed to you immediately, that's usually a good sign to keep exploring around so that you can tackle it later. Gathering more information through investigation is precisely what will lead to you hopping back on the previous conversations or newer ones with newfound context and spirit. You need to have the patience to willingly let yourself explore and backtrack when necessary. And then when you start mastering the languages by filling out all of their glyphs, you then have to keep note of their nuances that each language has. Whether it's the fact that the devotee's language has no dedicated plural marker, or the warrior's placement of their plurals mark is different from others, or the grammatical structure of how the bards speak. It's all really crafted in such an excellent way that makes the language learning process super fun, challenging, engaging, and every other similar word under the sun. And when you finally master them all, it just becomes a fantastic experience that's going to be extremely hard to forget once you've completed it. Just make sure that you go for the true ending, because if you don't, well, let's just say it won't be worth it no more. Overall, I think that this game is more than deserving of your time. I would highly recommend it if you're wanting to learn a language, or if you already are, as it does follow a realistic formula to understanding real ones. Of course, it's not all one-to-one to every language, and it may not be as simple as it can be inside of the game, but I do believe that this game will have you understanding a lot more about language than you might already know. So those are the 3 indie games that I think you should try, and I hope at the very least you'll check one of them out. Whether it's the pure crazy drive-in collectathon Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom, the humorous cringe that Restless Soul provides casual audiences, or the fantastic puzzle of learning languages that you cannot use in real life, Chants of Sennarr. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. I really want to talk about indie games as they're fairly short and there's a large abundance of them and variation. Of course, if you have any that you'd personally like me to play or review, please let me know in the comments down below. But anyways, that's gonna be all for me. You are now leaving CyKer's world. See you on your next visit.